Tonight we have Lamar Nelson. He is the tribal chief of the Eastern Cherokee, Southern Iroquois, and United Tribes of South Carolina. As the tribal CEO and renowned tribal archaeologist, he was recognized as South Carolina's Archaeologist of the Year in 2012. He brings extensive experience to his roles on the Chiefs Board for the Commission of Minority Affairs and the Native American Studies Center at USC Lancaster, where he actively influences cultural preservation and educational initiatives. So with that, please help me welcome Lamar.
Thank you for inviting me here. It's a privilege to be over here and talk to a wonderful organization. I love the outdoors like you do. I'll give you a little bit of history about myself. She just said, I'm chief of our tribe. We're an upstate tribe. We're a Cherokee tribe. The upstate of South Carolina is our homelands. We've got around 400 people on our tribal rolls. I'm the CEO and the tribe archaeologist. I do sit on the Chiefs board here in South Carolina, Council of Chiefs. I sat on 6 other boards in South Carolina. I'm on the Archaeological Research Board at Clemson. I'm on a diversity board at Walford and many other organizations that I'm on. So I'm really, really busy. I want to talk to you about a lot of different things tonight. And I know you're a native plants, outdoor stuff. And that's great. But I want to give you a history about native people. And then we'll also talk about native plants. And also, so that I don't forget it, I did bring a few copies, Native American botanics. This right here is different plants and what we use for herbal medicines. And I'll hand these out. Some of you can take them if you'd like. There's like 3 sheets of it. Let's talk about the early Native Americans. Now, our history books are totally wrong now, and we know that for a fact. I've been doing archaeology for a long time, and it's also embedded in me about Native American people. When I grew up, I'm a mixed blood Native American. Most Native Americans are today. They're all intermarried with lots of different types of people. My grandmother was half Cherokee. My grandfather was half Choctaw. My great-grandmother was born on the reservation. I've got her roll number, her tribal roll number. My mother's ancestors were English and Irish. My dad and mother both had 9 brothers and sisters. So I had 100 cousins. And so all my dad's family, I was always jealous of them because I love my Native American ancestry. I was always jealous of my cousins because just about every one of my cousins were really dark-skinned, black hair, black eyes is what they all look like. Even today, all my cousins do. My sister looks more Native American than I do, and so does my daughter. She looks Native American. So it bounces back and forth in these different generations. When I grew up, I stayed outdoors all the time. I loved nature, and I would be outdoors, and I started finding arrowheads and spear points in my dad's garden. So I built an archaeological screen when I was 12 years old. I started screening for artifacts. Of course, I was always around my cousins and so forth that were Native and enjoyed talking to them and my grandparents about Native people. We found out through many, many generations that where my ancestors came from, and like I said, my great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, all were from up in North Carolina. My Choctaw grandmother come from Arkansas, and then she went to Georgia and then into South Carolina. So these people, these native people that were my ancestors and the ones before them, we think about how long they've been here. Through my archaeological studies of 35 years, we know for a fact, this is not speculation, that people have been in South Carolina 25,000 years. We know that because of the Topper site. There's an archaeological site in Barnwell. It's called the Topper site. Look it up. I've worked there. I've been there many times. They've had people there from the Smithsonian, from China, from all over the world. People's been there. They've dated all of the material that's there. And now these are pre-Paleo people. So you always hear about the Paleo people, but these were pre-Paleo people. And it's a multi-component site, meaning people were there from pre-Paleo to Mississippian. So these early hunter people, hunter-gatherers, that's what they were now. They're not tribal people. Tribes came later. These hunter-gatherers were covered in animal skins. How did they get here? Everybody knows about the land bridge. If you've studied your books, that's what's all in the books. Land bridge, Siberia into what is now Alaska. That's true. They did come that way. But we know they also came other ways. They followed the ice sheets out of Europe and came down into what is Canada. Now, I'm always disappointed in the fact that a lot of young people today, they don't study a lot about history. They don't study geography in schools. So I was at one school and there were 400 kids there. These were eighth graders, and I asked them, did they know where Nova Scotia was? There were 4 out of 400 knew where Nova Scotia was. And when I was growing up, I loved to read, so I was reading all kinds of books. It helped me as I was growing up. Now, these early hunter-gatherer people, that's 2 ways they came. They also came a 3rd way. We know that a site down in South America called Monte Verde, it's a 9,000-year-old site. They found pottery at that site and footprints. It's 9,000 years old. The pottery is identical to pottery that's on the islands of Japan. So somebody was coming by boat. That's a long way to be in a boat, paddling, coming across probably with a sail. It came across into South America. So we know that for a fact. Now, hunter-gatherer people, especially for younger people, I want you to know, covered in animal skins, they're just trying to survive. Small family groups, moving from place to place, looking for food. Now, there were giant animals in what is South Carolina. 15,000 years ago, there were mastodons here. We know because we find their bones. There were big animals that looked like elephants. So they were roaming around here, and these people, these pre-paleo and then later paleo people, were hunting these big animals. There were giant ground sloths that stood 12, 15 feet tall. And they were giant armadillos that weighed 300 pounds. That's a big armadillo. And they were here, but that makes a big meal also. Now, as time progresses, we get to the point where it's about 15,000 years ago, and then we identify those people as paleo people. Now, paleo people, they're hunting with the same tool. I'll step around here right quick. They're hunting with the same tool as this right here. A spear. This is the only tool that you could hunt with back then at 15,000 years ago. Now, you can imagine trying to kill an animal as big as an elephant with this, or these other large animals. And they were scavengers also. An animal dies, it gets killed by another animal, and they scavenge that food and they eat it. But they're also killing animals with this. Now, a lot of times, and sometimes you have to be graphic, and when I try not to do elementary because it's a little above their age, but you talk about killing animals. Native American people did not kill animals for the sake of killing them. Why should we go kill that animal just for fun? They didn't do it. They were hungry, and they're killing that animal to eat it, to use its bones, to use its hide, to cover themselves up. So sometimes they probably killed, in my opinion, they probably were killing a mastodon with this, maybe sticking that animal several times, and it might take him 3 or 4 days to bleed out, and then they're going to follow him. But guess what? Now these other animals smell that blood. A short-nosed bear that's bigger than a grizzly bear. He's also following that animal. And then, of course, we got the saber-toothed cat. And we also got a dire wolf that's a lot bigger than a wolf. All those animals were here. So these paleo peoples having to fight off the animal they're trying to kill, also the other animals is trying to kill them. So the life of a paleo person was not very long. They probably live, you know, we have dated bones, and we know that a person that was 40 years old was at the end of their life. That was like your great-great-grandmother now, because of various reasons. The climate, the food, you getting injured, you break a leg, you're going to die. You know, you get a tooth abscess, you're going to die. So a lot of these things took these people out. But these people were getting smarter, just like today. And I point out to children, you know, these kids right here will be a lot smarter than you are. And we want them to be. And that's the way history is. You know, my children are smarter than me, and their children will be smarter than them. That's the way human evolution goes.
Mine aren't smarter.
Well, there is that one or two in each family that never makes it. You know, they never make it. They never learn. And we know that. So, but, you know, in the majority of children and the majority of adults do get smarter. And so these people are hunting with this right here. Well, they're also they making fire. We know that they made fire. And they were cooking over a fire with a stick. But as time progressed, people are getting smarter and smarter. So rather than hunting with a spear, at some point in time, and let me walk over here just for a second, at some point in time, some smart person came up with this. And this is called an atlatl. It's spelled A-T-L-A-T-L. I've got various throwers over here because they came in lots of different ways. I found the weight of one at a rock shelter in Spartanburg County in 1998. It's 5,000 years old. And my son was young at the time being. He was helping me excavate, and we dug it up, a 5,000-year-old artifact. So they're out there if it don't get covered in concrete, which is happening really quick. Now, let's talk about these paleo people. 10,000 years they use this. For 10,000 years. This has been used on every continent except Antarctica. This was used in Europe and Asia before it was here. How does this work? I can't throw this fast enough to kill an animal, but I can if I got this. This extends my arm way out. And it's got a hook on the end of it. And there's various kinds over there. Most of them's got deer antlers on the end of them. This fits in the end of this dart. River cane. I love river cane. And you guys, I'll tell you this in a minute. Don't let me forget. You guys got to help me get some river cane. River cane darts. They were using river cane. Now, you hold this like this. What I'm looking at is a herd of deer out here in this field. And I'm hungry. I don't care which one I kill. Mama, daddy, or baby. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just hungry. So there's 3 or 4 guys standing here, and they launched these darts because that's what they were doing. Now, I can throw this in a straight line for about 50 or 60 feet and take down an animal. But normally, you're going to throw it in an arch, and it's going to come down, and that big spear point that's on the end there is going to take that animal out. Now, I saw this actually happen on TV. I didn't see it in person. They did a reproduction, and they took this family out west, and they were herd of elk out there, and they taught these people how to throw the atlatl. Now, this is a chance in a million for this guy. There's a herd of elk. He launches one of these darts. He threw it about 75 yards. And I can throw it 100 yards. I can throw it through a car door. This dart that he threw, 75 yards, come down and hit that elk in the neck and dropped him to the ground. So when you know that it works. So for thousands of years, these guys were throwing these. You know, they were using it in the early Archaic and the middle Archaic and the late Archaic. So when we talk archaeological terms, we go from pre-Paleo to Archaic to woodland to Mississippian and to modern times. So this goes very fast and it's strong, and we find the weight that's in the middle, and I got various kinds over there, gives it that extra ump, I call it, to throw it, is what it does. And you can throw this thing fast once you learn how to throw it. Now, to kill an animal in a straight line, like I said, you want to throw it 50 or 60 feet. But besides that, you're launching it. And that's what you want to do. Now, paleo people, again, are just people that's roaming from place to place. They're not living in teepees or wooden structures. Family groups of 20, 25 people eating anything they can get their hands on. That excavation I told you about a while ago in 1998, I found charred mussel shell because it was right beside of a river. It's actually on the North Tiger River in Spartanburg County. They were eating mussels, turtle, and a spotted skunk. We found the jawbone of skunks that they were eating. So they were hungry, to be able to kill a skunk and eat it. But you got to survive. You'll eat anything you can. And I've eaten a lot of different things too, just because I wanted to. Now, time progresses again. Let's go from the middle archaic. People are using soapstone bowls. I don't know if you know what soapstone is. I think I might have one piece over there. It's a stone that you can carve really easy. Historical people used it to carve and make tombstones out of it. And you could even make countertops today. I wouldn't use it, but some people do. But they were carving bowls out of soapstone and they were using it to cook in instead of just over an open fire. A little bit later on, in the very late part of the archaic, right in before you move into the woodland period about 3,000 years ago, people started cooking in pots. Now, the oldest pottery in North America is 4,700 years old. It's called Stallings ware. It's found on the Stallings Island in the middle of the Savannah River. But it didn't really become prominent till later on. But 3,000 years ago, everybody was cooking in pots, clay pots. You can cook in it, you can store in it, you can carry stuff in it. That's during the time that things got really smart. People got the bow. Now, the bow didn't come in existence till 3,000 years ago in North America. Now, it was used way before that in Europe, way before. This is a strong bow here. It's made out of ash, and I've got arrows here. After this presentation, you're welcome to come up and look at any of this. Please don't pick it up. Just look at it. But these bows really transitioned from that dark because you know it would have been a transition period. Now, rather than standing up and them animals seeing me, I can crouch down behind a tree or a bush and I can use this bow and I can take out these animals. It's a fast, dark arrow shooting at these animals. It's got a stone tip on it, takes them down really easy. So life become easier. Now, I tell this story because I think it's true. It's my opinion anyway. These archaic people are traveling from place to place. And after a while, some mommy said, "Hey, Dad, I'm tired of walking. I'm right here beside this river, and this is a beautiful valley. We're going to build our house right here. Now, you can walk if you want to, but I'm staying here." And I think those mothers probably influenced those guys and said, "Let's stay right here." And they did. And they started building village sites along those rivers and those streams. All major river systems had Native American people on them, all of them. Some more than others, but they all did. Those people started building houses. Now, the Plains people, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Sioux, all of those people out there, they were following the buffalo. So they didn't want to build a structure that they stayed in all the time. So they built teepees. And they followed the buffalo and they hunted buffalo and then they stayed there a while. And when the buffalo moved, they moved. Took their house with them. The Eastern people, all the people on the East Coast, we had all these trees and all this water and animals. We built houses. out of logs. Some of them were small, and they had stuff in between the logs called daub, which is, where you take grass and you mix it with clay and you poke it in those cracks. It's called daub. And we find it sometimes doing archaeology where a house is burned down and it's really hard, so we find it. I found post holes before doing archaeology. Now, they also started growing crops, these woodland people did. Everybody knows about the three sisters, right? We know about the corn and beans and squash. We know about those. And so life got better. You're living in a house in the middle of the winter. You don't have to stand out there and let rain on you all day. You're growing crops. You got food. Population's growing because you're getting healthier. You're living longer. Time moves on. Mississippian people, these woodland people that started to build mounds, big earthen mounds. The Mississippian people built really big mounds. Now, there were a lot of them here in South Carolina. I've worked for 3 years at a place called Mulberry Mounds. There were 10 mounds there. It was on the Wateree River. And they had some pretty good sized mounds there. Now, mounds were used for different reasons. Sometimes they buried their family in it, the hierarchy family. Sometimes it was a ceremonial mound. Sometimes the chief lived up on top of the mound. So they had them for various reasons. Some mounds were small, some were large. And you can imagine hauling that in a basket, one basket full at a time, to make those large mounds, how long it would have took. A long time. So the Mississippian people are shooting the bows. They got crops. They're eating good food. Life's really good. Until a major thing happened to them. Invaders came here. The Europeans, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, all these different people started coming to North America. Now, we estimate there were 50 million Native Americans in North America when Europeans came here. And we know that they'd been here 25,000 years here in South Carolina. Now, when these people came here, they didn't know it, but they were bringing diseases. There was no measles, mumps, chicken pox, any of that stuff in North America. When Europeans came here, they brought those diseases, and sometimes 9 out of 10 people would die in a village. 9 out of 10. And not only that, it really troubles me to know that human beings have been real cruel to each other forever. They always have been, probably always will be. But I think about the native people that was here, and I tell this story to this one guy was saying, I think the Native Americans were savages, and he went on this bunch of stuff to me, and I said, well, if 10 people showed up at your house today and they had a spear and they said, you either go out of your house or I'm going to kill you, and I'm taking all your food, and I'm going to take your children and make slaves out of them, what would you do? So that's what happened. These Europeans came here, and that's what they did to the native people. They took everything they owned. The Spanish was really, really bad. I've read the journals that was written by scribes for Hernando de Soto. Now, the Spanish had been down in South America for a long time, and gold was everywhere. And they had destroyed the Aztecs and the Incas and the Mayans. So North America was the next pick, and they were looking for gold. Hernando de Soto comes through Georgia. He lands in Florida in 1539. He comes up through Georgia, crossed over by Columbia, comes up through Cofetachequi, which is Mulberry Mounds down there on the Wateree River. He goes up through North Carolina, but the whole time he goes into a village and he's got these interpreters, sort of. And he said, I'm wanting gold. I want gold. But they didn't have any gold. Most of these people, small tribes anyway, The Catawba and the Cherokee were the biggest tribes. All the rest of them are small people, small tribes. So they didn't have any gold. Well, he got really frustrated. Now, this was written by his own people. This is not makeup. So when he'd go into a village, he'd say, "Give me all your gold." He started cutting some of them's hands off. Then he cut their noses off and he cut their ears off. And he put all that in a basket and he sent it to the next village. He said, "Tell those people that's what I'll do to everybody there. They should give me all you got." So when he's sitting on a horse with bright, shiny armor on, big beard, 600 men, he goes to the next village, nobody there. He goes to the next village, there's nobody there. So he takes all their food. They start fighting with him up around North Carolina, Tennessee. They kill some of his people. So when he gets over to Mississippi River, he got sick and he died. I said he got what he deserved. So they took him in a canoe and took him out in the middle of the Mississippi River and dropped him in the river. So if you've ever been on a boat going up the Mississippi, you're going right over the top of Hernando de Soto, right over his grave. But it's such a shame that when these Europeans came here, not only was they looking for gold, but they were looking for trees. They'd done cut all the trees down in Europe. So they were shipping them by the shipload back to Europe. And all the other resources that was here, all the animals, the food, the deer skins. It was amazing. They were shipping all this stuff back. Well, a lot of the natives tried to work with the invaders, but they were strong-willed about taking everything the native people had. They took all their land, all their food. They made slaves out of them. They shipped them down to the Caribbean. They took some of them back to England and paraded them around in front of the king like a little dog on a leash. And it's a sad time what happened to these people. And most of them died off. Now, they are native people here today. A lot of people will walk up to me and I've had people be racist to me because they'll say, "You don't look like no Indian." Well, I'm not. I'm not an Indian. People from India are Indians, but I am a mixed blood Native American. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud to be a chief of my tribe. It's an honor, and I'm very proud of it. And I will work as long as I can to protect the Native people and our environment. That's what I do. Now, we try to work with people, and actually last week I was in the governor's office. He wanted all the chiefs to come down for a photo op. He did Native American Heritage Month. We went down there and stood in his office and shook his hand and got our picture made with the governor, and he got his picture made with us, which I thought he needed that picture. I didn't, but he did. But, you know, it helps us. You know, I'm glad that he did it. He didn't have to, and I'm glad that he did it. And so today, we try to promote Native American history. We try to teach schools and public outreach like I'm doing today. I especially love working with kids. I do a lot of archaeology. I try to recover all of our artifacts to save them. So I'm 72 years old.
That's very young.
Well, I hope so. My mother just turned 90. So I hope so. Mine's a lifetime appointment to be chief, and I'll stay here as long as I can. I'll turn it over. My vice chief is a traditional medicine woman. She's been teaching Native American medicines for 35 years. She's got a PhD in herbal medicines and botanist. She's a very, very smart person, very smart. And so when we go out, we teach that to children. We teach about plants. My grandmother said her mother was a medicine woman, and my grandmother would take me out in the forest and teach me all about the different plants and so forth when I was a kid, when I was your age. So I learned some of those things, and I've retained it, and I taught it to my children. Our son is 40 and our daughter's 42, and we kept them both outdoors our entire life. And my wife's sitting over there and 44 years. And so, you know, we've had a wonderful life with our children, teaching them about nature and so forth. and they are teaching their two daughters. Our son has a daughter, our daughter has a daughter. They keep them outdoors. We don't want them being on the phone all the time. So, you know, I'm giving you a general, really quick version of Native American history of what it's been like. Now, how does, you know how that relates to Native Plant Society? We are stewards of the land. Native people love nature. I love nature. If I cut a tree, I put my hands on that tree and I said, I know that I'm taking your life and I am sorry. If I kill an animal, I put, you know, when you're hunting, you kill a deer, the best way to do it is to pour water in the deer's mouth, give it its last drink, put the back of its nose, and you tell that animal, I'm sorry for taking your life, but my family is hungry. That's what Native people do. We protect the environment. It's hard to do today. I live in Spartanburg County. It's getting covered in concrete. The whole county. They're destroying it. And I told my wife many, many times, I almost wish that 30 years ago I'd have moved to Alaska and went out in the wilderness somewhere. But my wife said it was too cold for her. She didn't want to go up there. So I know I've give you that spiel, but there's two other things before I open the floor for questions. There's two projects I'm working on that I want to tell you about, and then you can ask me any kind of question you want. I'll stay here as long as you want me to. I'm working on two major projects besides for my tribe. Both of them are related to my tribe. I'm working with a college professor and an administrator up in Gaffney. We're going to build a Native American Research Museum in South Carolina. I've been talking about this for about a year. I've got a lot of support. The museum in Columbia supports it. Charleston Museum does. The Native American Studies Center in Lancaster, the Council of Chiefs, lots of other organizations. They really support this. We got a lot of museums, but in the Upstate, we don't have a full Native American museum. And I'm not talking about like the one over at Walhalla, Luther Lyles Museum, that Cherokee Museum over there. I'm talking about a large museum. And it's going to be research. We're going to take material from every tribe in South Carolina and put it there. So you can see all our different people. All these people, all natives are blood related. We're all brothers and sisters. So we're going to put that in there. We're going to put a section in there about health. Native American people have a really big problem. Number one, alcohol. Why? Because Europeans, those invaders, kept our people drunk all the time with rum so they could steal everything they had. And it made alcoholics out of these native people. And it's followed their bloodlines all the way down. Today, there's a huge problem with alcohol with native people. Diabetes, obesity, drugs, all these are problems with native people. We're going to put a health section in that museum also. We're going to put a library there. And then we're going to take all of these artifacts that you got sitting in your closet that Grandpa dug up on the farm when he was plowing that mule or with a tractor, and he kept picking them all up, putting them in a shoebox and stuck them in the closet. Well, there's lots of those collections out there, I know. We're going to take those collections because we're asking people to donate them. And I'm taking in collections. They're going to go in that museum. I just not long ago was given the largest private collection of Catawba pottery in South Carolina. It's going in that museum, every piece of it. It's a modern collection. It's not prehistoric. It's historical, but it's all going in there. I had a lady from Washington State said, hey, I found out about you on the internet, and my grandpa lived in Gaffney. Here's his address to his farm. He's dead now. He's passed away. And he found all these artifacts on the farm. I got them sitting in my closet. I don't want them. I don't even know what they are. You want them? Yeah. Sure. She actually mailed them to me. And so I was down in Columbia recently. A guy gave me his entire collection. All those artifacts that nobody in your family really cares about them. And if they do, they want to sell them on eBay or at the flea market for $4 or $5 a piece. Don't do that. Please don't do that. You know, if you got them or if you know somebody that's got them, donate them to me and they will go to that museum. I promise you. I'll give you my card. You can look me up. You can know who I am. So we recently met with an architect. We're hoping to build this museum at 20,000 square feet. It's going to cost $14 million. We are working with some of the senators in South Carolina. They're in the process of trying to get us federal money to do it. Federal government ought to give us some money back. They've taken all of ours, so we need to get some of it back. So that's one project I'm working on. So get those collections out of your closet and send them to me. That's one project. Here's a project that's dear to my heart. And I tell this story everywhere I go. You may have heard it before. If you have, I want you to listen to it again. I need your help. Whether you can help me or you know somebody that can help me. My tribe is a Cherokee tribe. We're based out of the upstate of South Carolina. All my ancestors were in Greenville, Pickens, Spartanburg, Oconee, all Anderson, Lawrence, all those counties, especially the upper counties around the mountains, where all the Cherokee people were. My ancestors are buried under 150 feet of water at Lake Kiowee. I was there when I was 16 years old. Archaeologist was there digging. My daddy took me and my two brothers. We were there. They had 3 strands of barbed wire around those archaeological sites. They were taking up the revolutionary people that was there. The Native Americans, they left them in the ground. So my ancestors are 150 foot under the water. They tried to drown them. They covered them up. They erased them from history. So what we're trying to do is I need land. My tribe does not have any land. This building is sitting on my ancestral lands. The entire upstate is our ancestral lands. Our tribe does not have the money to go out and buy land. Land's very expensive. And most people want money, lots of money. And I know it's worth a lot of money. But California, believe it or not, and Minnesota and Maine and several other states are actually giving land back to tribes. They've even given entire state parks back to tribes. Now, there's got to be somebody out there that owns a farm, 50 or 75 acre farm, or some corporation, some organization. And I've been meeting with different organizations for the last year, and they're helping me. And I've got this young lady, a lawyer that's working with me. I call her Tiger Woman. She's a tiger. She really is. And she's helping us, and we're trying to get land. Now, you got to go through a lot of bureaucracy dealing with the government. I went and met a local congressman. I'm not going to call his name. And he had his entire staff in there. And I said, sir, you know, my tribe does not have land, and I need land in the upstate. 50 acres, 75 acres, 1,000, I don't care if you'll give it to me. Now, we're going to take this land. We're going to put our tribal office there, and we're going to put our powwow grounds. I have to rent land. I have to rent my own ancestral land to have our powwow. That's not right. So I asked this congressman, I said, how about helping me? You know, you out of Columbia, help me get some of this land back before it's all gone. Well, you know, have you talked to the state parks? I said, about what? He said, well, if you'll go to state parks, he'll give you part of their land. I said, no, they're not. First of all, I don't have the connections to go up to the state parks, whoever's in charge of them, say, give me about 300 or 400 acres of your land. I said, they're not going to do it. Well, you know, have you went to the DNR? They own a lot of land too. Go tell them that you want some of that land they got. I said, I work with all their archaeologists, and I know those people. They don't give their land away. They're not going to do it. Well, I really appreciate your time. I'm glad you came by here. And if I think of anything, I'll get back with you. Thank you for coming. Out the door. So he must have contacted this guy down in the lower part of the state. He calls me on the phone, a congressman. He said, Chief Nelson, I understand you're trying to find land in the upstate. I said, yeah. And you trying to get a museum built? I said, yeah. Well, there's a museum over in Walhalla. It's a Cherokee museum. I said, yeah, I know Luther Lyles. He's a good friend of mine. Well, what about that museum? I said, have you ever been there? He said, no. I said, it's about 20 foot square inside. And I'm looking for a multi-million-dollar museum. And I think Luther's museum's great. I was just over there last week. But it's not what I'm after. I'm looking for a big museum. And I'm looking for land. Can you help me with land? I don't think I can help you with land. I'm down here in the lower part of the state. So that's what I'm dealing with, the bureaucracy with congressmen and senator people. So that's when I go back to the average person, the real human beings. The people that's out there and you want your land protected. You don't want it covered in concrete. You don't want a house development on it. You don't want the water destroyed and the plants all pushed up in piles. You don't want that to happen. And I will never stop fighting as long as I live. And there is a person out there somewhere or some organization, all this land's they'll give it to these conservancy organizations, which are great. I work with them. I think it's great they're getting land. But instead of giving it to the conservancy, give it to me. It ain't my personal land, it's our tribe's land. Our 400 tribal members that we want to be able to take there and be able to teach children about plants. We want to plant native plants on that property. River cane, native azaleas, and all these other native plants that we could put there. We want to make medicines out of them. We want to take walnuts and make dye. We want to take all kinds of other things and make dye out of it. And we can only do that if I get land. Now, you don't have to answer me now. Make a note and go out and talk to your friends and your relatives and somebody down the street that somebody's got a farm, or they saying, hey, I don't want my land developed. And I know a guy that you can give it to. You give it to his tribe. It don't go to me, it goes to the tribe. We're a 501c3, so it's tax deductible. It'll never be developed. We're not going to cut all the trees off of it. We're not going to put a casino on it. The Catawba's spending $700 million to build that casino over at Kings Mountain. $700 million. And I know their chief. I've been over there many times at Catawba Reservation. $700 million. I think they got, I believe it was $30 million last year from the government. And I can't get $30 from my government in South Carolina. They won't give me money. And so I know I poured out a lot of information, a lot about Native American stuff, a lot about plants. Like I said, I've got some information up here that some of you might like to read. My grandmother, when I was a kid, she made me drink sassafras tea all the time. You would have thought it cured everything in the world. And every time I got stung by a bee, she'd reach in her mouth and pull that tuberose snuff out of her mouth and start patting it on my arm or wherever I got stung. She was putting tobacco juice on me. So all those things that my grandmother would do to me, and she was a treasured person to me. And so I encourage you young people, if you find an arrowhead or a spear point, take an index card or a piece of paper and write it down, write your name and the date, where you found it. All of you got phones today, get a GPS recording of it and record that information. And moms and dads that's out there and grandparents, if you got something that you want to give your children or grandchildren, write the information down. Take you a sheet of paper and say, my name is this is the date, this is the article, this is what I'm giving you. I have my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother's Bible. And I've got lots of other artifacts, historical and prehistoric. I'm giving everything I own away. I got thousands of historical letters dating back to 1850. I'm giving it to the library. All my prehistoric artifacts, I've got over 6,000 arrowheads and spear points. Every piece of it's going to that museum. Every piece of it. So grandmas and moms and dads write all that information down and give it to the next person. That way, when they get your age, they'll know where it came from. Because if you don't, if you give it to one of these children and they become 80 years old, they might not remember where it came from. But if you got a piece of paper there, it will. So, that's how much time I got, Angie? None. So I would like to open the floor to questions, whether it's about the museum, about land, or about these artifacts. And like I said, you're welcome later to come up here and look at anything I got here. I ask you not to pick it up because some of them are authentic. There's stuff over there that's 12,000 years old. And there's a lot of reproductions here too. So questions? Yes, sir.
I have, this is what I've read. There's the dog that exists in the Savannah Riverside between Georgia and South Carolina called the Carolina dog.
Right.
The wild dog. And supposedly it has been authenticated as genuine wild animal native to the area. And supposedly what I've read is genetics indicate it is a dog from Asia, not of European stock, and not a wolf.
Right. You're exactly right.
So I just wondered, what do you think of that?
You're exactly right.
What do you think of the Carolina dog?
Well, the natives, there were dogs here during prehistoric times. And later on, they used them to, like horses. They put straps on them and they had them to pull stuff. You know, they were carriers of material for them. They used it. And when you said that, made me think we had this underwater archaeologist friend of ours from Finland, and she worked with us off and on for a year. And we got to know her really well. And while she was here, she bought her a Carolina dog and took it back to Finland with her. And so those animals were here. It probably is Asian. It could have come over with these pre-Paleo people. We think probably that's how it got here. But it is authentic, yes. Yes. Yes, sir, I do. Well, I'll give you my card. What? Okay, that'd be great. You know, I've got a little bit of land down in Woodruff. If it was prime land that I could use for my tribal grounds, I'd give every bit of it to my tribe. But it's up and down hills. I can't have an office there. I can't have powwow grounds. There's nowhere to park. So it won't work for my tribe, and it makes me sick that I can't do that. But it's got a creek on it and a valley, and I want to plant river cane all up and down through there. And once we get our tribal lands, we're going to plant river cane on it. That's what I want to do. Yes, sir. We're a Cherokee tribe. The Eastern Band. It is. That's the Eastern Band. There's actually Cherokee tribes in Georgia. There's some in Alabama. You got the ones in Oklahoma. And we got our tribe here that's in South Carolina. We actually got 2 Cherokee tribes in South Carolina. Got 3 PD tribes. But we're different than the Eastern Band. We're blood related. We're the same people. It's just they're a federal tribe up there. They're the people that hid out during the 1800s when they marched them out west. There were a couple thousand of them hid out up in the mountains. And so that's part of those people that were there. Yeah. No, unfortunately, they're not. And that's sad. And I just made this statement last week. I'm going to get my vice chief, and she knows a couple of the people that's in their offices up there. And I'm going to set up an appointment, and I'm going to the Eastern Band. For some reason, The Eastern Band Cherokee hates every tribe in South Carolina. They will not work with any of us. They won't. They won't help us in any kind of way. And we've offered, we tried, you know, we don't know why there's a problem. I think a lot of it comes down to money. All federal tribes get money from the government. All of them do. And so I don't know if they're afraid that the government's going to end up giving state tribes money or what, but that could be one reason. I'm just guessing. But I'm going to try to, I consider myself a peacemaker. And when I sit on our council's meetings, I'm a peacemaker. And now my vice chief's a warrior. Like I said, her name is Jody Noe. She's a PhD and she's very smart, but she's a warrior. And so when we go places, we have to balance each other out. But I'm going to take her with me to the Eastern Band, and I'll keep my hand right here while I'm talking to them, you know, keep her from getting really agitated. Yes, sir. They're my friends. We're blood related. That's the PAIA, Chief Sharp. He's a friend of mine. Matter of fact, I just talked to him last week. He was down there at the governor's mansion with me and some other chiefs, and we're really close friends, but they're a different tribe. There's 2 tribes in South Carolina. There's Cherokee. There's 3 PD, the Santee, the Wasmasaw, the Waccamaw. You know, there's all these different tribes that's here. Yes. I'm chief of the Eastern Cherokee Southern Iroquois United Tribes. We got about 400 tribal members on our rolls. We're mostly based out of the upstate of South Carolina. We're all Cherokee. We do have 1 or 2 that we adopted. We have a Seminole that we adopted, a Mohawk that we adopted. They didn't have a home. Their people were way away and they were not a member of another tribe. You cannot be a member of 2 tribes. You can only be a member of 1 tribe. And to be a member of my tribe, it's like all other tribes, you have to fill out an application. It's a quite difficult application to fill out, but you have to show documentation that you're related to a Native American. Now, in the past, you had to be at least 1/32nd to be a member of any tribe. They went away from that, and we had to do it because our bloodlines were disappearing. If you didn't continue to marry a full-blood Native American, eventually there wouldn't be any Native Americans here. It was 1/32nd. So all the tribes now require you to show a document that you're directly related, genealogical way, to a Native American. My great-grandmother, I have a roll number, so it's not a problem for me. Now, you may have a 3rd great-grandmother that was Native American, and you have a census record and a marriage license or a death certificate or some other type of document that shows she was Native American or mulatto, because census takers would say that natives were mulattoes. Sometimes they'd say they were black. Sometimes they'd say they're white. Sometimes they'd say they're native. These census takers weren't the greatest people in the world about accounting people. But if you can show that that person's mulatto or Native American, and you got the document to prove it, and you can show me that on your genealogical chart, you can become a member of our tribe. You'd receive a tribal letter and a tribal roll number. Makes you a minority. So, but of all things, it makes you a Native American, which is the most honored thing. Yes.
Has that become an issue with people like?
Don't count on it. Don't count on it. We've learned, I've got a son-in-law that's a doctor. My daughter's a CRNA, my son-in-law is a doctor. We did research on this. Believe it or not, that bloodline's gonna bleed out really quick. When you marry whites and blacks and browns, that bloodline gets moved around. And you do a test and it might not show that you're 25% Native. It might not. And that's not important. What's important to me is that document you can show me I don't care what your DNA shows. That's irrelevant to me. I want to see that document that says great-great-grandpa, great-great-grandma was a Native American. And you can show that line there. That's what's important. Yes. We put markings on pots. I've got a friend of mine that's a really good potter, and I've made a pot, and my wife's made one, and my dad did also. It's a design. It makes it look pretty. And we use corn cobs. We use shells, river cane, all different kinds. We use a paddle and draw a design on it. And we put all those markings on there to make it look good. That's what that's for. Any other questions? Yes.
What would you say is the most fascinating artifact that you have here in your?
Well, and I answer that in two different ways. To me, all artifacts are important. They're beautiful and they're amazing to look at. And knowing that, and you've heard this story before, but to know that I picked something up that was made thousands of years ago and I'm holding it in my hand and I think about some person that made it. How amazing is that? You know, I can just envision in my head somebody standing out there, whether it's a piece of pottery and some lady made that pot 1,000 years ago, or if I find some spear point that some guy made 4,000 years ago and hold it in your hand. But I've got some artifacts over there that's 12,000 years old. And when I found those, I thought, wow, 12,000 years ago, somebody was here standing exactly where I'm at and made that. And I got to tell you this, and then I'll shut up and take a couple more questions. My daughter's named Morning Hawk. Now, Native people, because people, this is one question you hadn't asked. A lot of people asked about religion. Religion and politics will get you in trouble talking about it. No matter what, no matter where you stand, you don't want to argue with your family about politics or religion. Leave it off the table. But people ask me about religion. Native Americans believed in a hierarchy. Now, they believe that the great creator created this or the great creator did this. And that was their hierarchy. I believe in spirits. Now, not in a sense that a lot of people think, but I believe that there's ancestral spirits out there. You can call them angels. You can call them spirits that are guiding you or whatever. Everywhere my daughter goes, she has hawks flying close to her. So we named her Morning Hawk. I will tell you this story. Many years ago, my wife and I was looking for some artifacts at this location. And I'm walking, this is an absolute true story. I'm walking, all of a sudden a giant red-tailed hawk landed in a tree right above my head. Now, that don't happen. I looked up at that hawk and it's looking down at me and it's squawking at me. And I'm talking to the hawk and I'm saying, "You are so beautiful. What are you trying to tell me?" And it's squawking at me. And I knew that it was a spirit trying to tell me something. I looked down at my shoe and that far from the end of my shoe was a spear point about that long. And I'm almost standing on it. And I honestly believe that that hawk stopped me to tell me to pick that up. And I believe it was the spirit of the person that made that. That's my beliefs. And I picked that up. And so it was a beautiful experience for me. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's on a location, it's on a piece of private property, it's 7,000 acres. And it's really guarded. You can't go to it. I've worked there 3 years and they had problems for years and years. It's on the Wateree River, and one of the mounds called Mound A was the largest mound. And the Wateree River was cutting the mound in two. And it eroded about half of it was into the river. And the mound was really tall. people were coming down the river. I saw pictures of this. People had come down the river and was parking their boats, and they had a ledge right there on the edge of the river. They were digging into the mound, and they were pulling out pots, but they were also pulling out skeletons. And this is actual knowledge. They were taking and kicking the skeletons off in the river and getting the artifacts. And they caught this one guy down there. He took a box like you get a refrigerator in. And in the middle of the night, he went over on top of the mound and had a light in it that runs off of a battery. And he set the box on top of the mound and was digging down at the top of the mound, trying to get artifacts. And they actually caught him. He went to jail. But they got guards that takes care of that property. While we were there, they had guards riding around on four-wheelers with weapons to try to keep people off of it. So they got a gate. You can't get on the property unless you get permission. It's down below Camden. Yeah. The mounds that are down there are almost completely gone. They're almost, matter of fact, one of the mounds, the guy back in the early 1900s took an old timey dozer and pushed the entire mound off into the creek. Destroyed it. There's mounds all up and down the Wateree River. A lot of them's under the water. They're on the Savannah River. There's a lot of mounds under the water on Savannah, but they're all underwater. I've been there. Yep. It's right there beside the lake. Yeah, you know, during the Revolution, they put a bunch of cannons up on top of it. They did. Yes, ma'am. Yes. I do. Yeah. All natives had native names. They're not all animal names, but they had native names. And they were named by the chief. My name is Standing Bear. My granddaughter is named Two Feathers. So they're not all animal names, but I guess she's related to a bird, Two Feathers. You're talking about different, like 3 or 4 names? It can be. Most of them are 2 names. Like one of my nieces is named White Buffalo. So most of them are 2, but they could be 3. They could be. Well, Chief Nelson is my last name, my European name. My name's Lamar Nelson. So I'm Chief Lamar Nelson, but my native name is Standing Bear. So today, all chiefs have a native name, and a lot of native people do, but we're trying to educate young people like yourselves to honor their heritage and go back to their roots. So hopefully it'll happen. Okay, one more question, then we'll end this and we'll let you come up and look at artifacts. Anybody else got the last question? Yes, ma'am. Probably not. We've not posted it on the internet. I'm working with Limestone University. I'm working with the city of Gaffney, a college professor that's up in Gaffney, Felicia Cavallini. She's working with me on the health side of the museum. And like I said, Council of Chiefs and the State Museum supports it. Native American Studies Center at Lancaster supports it. So like I said, we just met recently with an architect to try to figure out the design of what we're going to do. City of Gaffney just spent $7 million on a Revolutionary War museum. So I went there asking them for $7 million, and they said, that ain't enough money to build it. I said, well, how much money do I need? They said, 14 million. I said, I'll take it. And I told them I wanted 10,000 square foot for the museum. And they said, well, you got to have it bigger than that. I said, I'll take 20,000 square feet. They said, that's about the size you need. So, but currently there's not a website or anything that we can go to about that. But we will have eventually. Right now, we're out there beating the bushes, as I say, trying to meet large donors that's trying to give money back, you know, the BMWs and the Duke Powers and all these large corporations that gives money to stuff like that. And we're trying to get money from them right now. Well, I appreciate your time. Would you come and get this, please? Take one if you'd like, pass it around if you could photocopy that. And I appreciate your time of being here. Help me with the museum, especially help me with the land. Talk this up to somebody that you might know. If you got artifacts that you don't want sold at a flea market or your children don't care anything about them. You know, the guy down in Columbia, his son was there. He said, I don't care anything about them rocks. You can have them all. So he gave me several hundred arrowheads and spear points. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Able to get you recorded the whole time.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard of being called that word called blue deer?
Blue what?
Blue deer.
It's interesting to know that, though. I'll try to do some research on that.
I'm a big backpacker.
Okay.
A lot of walks. I hiked that off the trail, and in 1998, I was at some random guy in Virginia.
Wow.
And I've had it since I was 18 and 44.
Yeah.
But recently I've been seeing a lot of images of blue deer in
Wow.
crazy parts of my life. And so
Must be a spirit coming to you.
we Googled it, and that's what we found.
Yeah.
Towards the Mexican tribes and some like animal they hunt and stuff. I don't know. But anyway, I didn't know if you had ever heard of it.
No, sir, I haven't.
Yeah, it's like nuts.
Yes. Well, I actually sat on the Spartanburg County 250 Society. Okay. I've been on it for a few years and. With the large 250 and the green. Okay, well, we've been meeting regularly and so, talking about the revolutionary side, but there's a guy